there I was. It was raining heavily. Each pedal stroke felt like an eternity, and I wasn't really sure if this was the right thing to do and if I was getting anywhere. Have you ever felt like this? Like you're trying to do something, but it's incredibly difficult, and you're not sure if you're really going to have any success with it. And it's just incredibly difficult and you're really frustrated. Today, I want to share with you the actual first time I tried to conquer a mountain on the bike. And I'll be honest, I made a lot of mistakes, but there's some magic in that. And if you stay tuned, you'll be able to understand how that magic came about and why it's important. This happened towards the very beginning of my cycling journey. It took actually a little bit of time before I started to conquer or even see my first mountain. Because see, the thing is, where I live, the mountains are on the other side of the city, so it's a bit more of a ride to get there. And I've never really grown up around these mountains, so visually I didn't know what they looked like. But I knew that in my area where I lived, there's a type of mountain that everyone would talk about as a cyclist, and it would almost be like a rite of passage. And that's kind of what this video is today. That is the first mountain I conquered. And funnily enough, in a certain sense, I haven't conquered that part of it since. Let me explain. So I also could have picked a better day for this. That day, it was cloudy. And as I got to the mountain itself, it started to rain. My research beforehand wasn't that great. I had known that there was a climb called Norton Summit Road. And I also knew there were two aspects to this climb. If you went the left path, it would be the new Norton Summit Road. If you went the right path, it would be the old Norton Summit Road, or vice versa. What I didn't understand was that cyclists don't really ride up the old Norton Summit Road anymore. And more so cars take that route. But I didn't really know that at the time, right? So as I'm going up this mountain or trying to do this old Norton Summit Road, I didn't know how long it was. It started raining. There I was with my secondhand bike, and there was actually one thing in it that was perfect for me to be able to actually conquer this mountain and actually tangibly do it. But then I realized there was something that I did really wrong, which I'm going to get to. But as I started to climb, I realized I was actually getting there, and I could actually start to see the view below, which was pretty crazy to kind of see how I was tracking up this mountain and how I was actually starting to conquer it. Even though it was raining, even though each pedal stroke felt forever, I had a rain jacket on, so I was kind of somewhat protected. There were cars passing me, but whatever. You know, I had enough gears, which is important because luckily the secondhand bike I got, I believe had either a 25 or a 28 at the back. The higher that number is, the kind of easier it is to pedal up a very steep incline. Meaning it kind of was a bit more useful as someone not as experienced in conquering mountains to have that extra kind of, I guess, ease to frame myself to correctly conquer that mountain, because I didn't have as much, athletic fitness and, I hadn't built my cycling to a certain level. But then there I was. I kept pushing and I eventually did it. I actually had gotten to the top of that mountain. But towards the end of that, I realized it started to become like there was lots of switchbacks, which were really tight and steep. And that was really tricky, I'm not gonna lie. But by conquering that, I eventually conquered that part of the mountain. But what was really done was the next step. I didn't really know how to kind of go back to where I'd come. So I was thinking I was like, okay, well then I'll just go back the way I came, which would normally be a smart thing to do. But because it was wet, because there were switchbacks, and because it was raining, this made navigating those switchbacks for someone for the first time riding downhill extremely scary and difficult. I was doing okay, but I remember there was a point where I had actually come off my bike because I kind of locked my front wheel. Because obviously, it takes longer to brake when it's wet. And I started braking as I was turning when I should have broken or apply the brakes more at the straight part to really slow down my momentum and then turn, take a wider circle, so on and so forth. And that's when I thought, this really sucks. Like, why on earth did I do this? I hate this. I'm hurt. Like, I want to get another bike. I don't feel safe on this bike. When really what I should have done, now knowing, is A, take the other Norton Summit way up, which is New Norton Summit Road, which I've done ever since and taken up many, many times. Take that New Norton Summit the way down, because it doesn't have those steep switchbacks and it's a lot more safer. The roads are wider, which is great. And I think, to be honest, it's much more enjoyable of a ride because it's not as steep, it's a bit more gradual. So that's kind of like what I'm getting at. I didn't have that experience, but by conquering that mountain, I had gained the sense that I don't want to conquer it that way again, or I will go down a different way. So it wasn't until I was actually riding shortly after with a cycling group, they said, no, you go the New Norton Summit way, and then we tackled that together, and that was fantastic. I had a bunch of people with me, and they gave me tips on how to descend more safely, or in a way, like I said, apply lots of brakes before turning. Don't apply brakes when turning. Don't pedal if you've got a lot of momentum going downhill. Simply don't pedal, because more speed is going to make it more dangerous. But that was kind of the ethos of what I formed in terms of conquering mountains and conquer life. It actually made me feel like a cyclist, and it made me believe that I can conquer more mountains, go for longer rides, push myself athletically. Even though that time I had failed dramatically, I still managed to gain something really valuable. And by doing so in a very difficult situation, being it was very steep, it was rainy, it sucked, it meant that every other time I would climb a mountain, it would be so much more easier, like relative, because of course the mountain might not be as steep. I might have ridden it a couple of times, so I know where it finishes. It's not raining, so that's a plus. So I kind of get fresh air, and it's really nice. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today, that you might kind of get to that point where you're not sure if you really want to conquer this mountain, and then when you do, you still have to push through, because it will feel amazing. And of course, the benefit is you'll be able to take these lessons with you and realize, well, there's actually some things I could have done differently, and that's where the growth and the experience is. If you had never done that, you would never have known that. So you kind of begin to position yourself as someone with experience in conquering those mountains and conquering life. So that's what I want to leave you with today. A story of how I conquered my first mountain. I've been conquering mountains on the bike ever since, and have hence been conquering life. Thank you. Now, of course, please subscribe. That will really help me out. You'll be able to have more content like this, where I show you other ways to conquer mountains, conquer life, literally, and also in terms of mindset, lifestyle, so many more aspects. I also offer one-on-one coaching. If you click the link below, you'll be able to see all the steps for that. You can send me questions. I can answer them ahead of time before our 60-minute consultation. And I can kind of help you to frame what are some mountains you want to conquer, how I can help you conquer those easier. Of course, if you literally want to conquer mountains, conquer life, I've got that sorted. I've already created and crystallized all my lessons I've learned from conquering mountains on the bike into a 160-page ebook that's broken into 4 phases of how to get the bike, everything you'll need, helmet, cycling clothes, how to save money on the bike, of course, the training you'll need to do on the bike to get to that next level, sustainable, safe way, how to conquer the actual mountain literally in terms of pacing, how I advise it, how to feel for the mountain, including on and off the bike, how to recover on and off the bike so you get back on the bike soon to conquer more mountains and conquer much more of life and just see so many more amazing sights. Of course, if you want that or access to that, click the link below. Otherwise, I'll see you around. See you for the next one. Conquer mountains, conquer life.